We're just a few days away from the release of Dying Light: The Beast, the latest installment in a franchise that blends the thrills of parkour, the terrors of survival horror, a zombie-infested open world, and of course, a riveting narrative that ties it all together. Veterans in this immersive and engaging gameplay loop are sure to be waiting with bated breath to find out where Kyle Crane's latest adventures take him, and if there's anything left of his humanity at the end of it. However, if The Beast is your first time with the franchise, you may not be familiar with the events that have landed Crane in his current predicament. While The Beast's story is slated to stand on its own, we believe that being up to date with the franchise's lore can make your time with the upcoming game a lot more interesting. To that end, we've taken on the task of bringing a detailed breakdown of the series' past adventures, allowing you to quickly get up to speed on everything you need to know about the character and the world around him before you begin your playthrough of Dying Light: The Beast. If you're planning on playing through previous titles in the franchise later, know that there are going to be spoilers ahead. Our story takes us to the town of Haran, a fictional city whose many architectures and thriving culture-economic core anchor daily life for its residents. The city's pedigree stretches far back, with references as old as hundreds of years ago. Older quarters still display ancient foundations, and despite a turbulent early history, the city gradually grew in prominence. However, that semblance of normalcy didn't last. In 2015, a resident reported being sick, and soon unleashed a catastrophe. A rabies-like virus that reduced people to feral husks that the city would come to call the Infected. Within days, the outbreak consumed entire districts, leaving Haran cut off from the world and fighting for survival. The pathogen tore through everything, turning people at uneven speeds, some almost instantly, others after a brief struggle. But few locals held out long. One reliable weakness related to the infected emerged. Strong ultraviolet light could keep them under. Even so, the infected remained lethally efficient, able to turn almost anyone they came into contact with. This meant daylight offered some safety to the locals, but once darkness fell, the streets belonged entirely to them. As Haran's Ministry of Public Defense sealed off various areas to contain the crisis, the Global Relief Effort, GRE, began supply drops to better support the population. It's 2014. Enter Kyle Crane, the protagonist of Dying Light, an undercover operative sent to track someone called Rise and retrieve research that might point to a cure. To do so, he had to infiltrate Haran, quickly finding himself caught between survival and duty. The insertion goes wrong almost immediately. Shortly after his airdrop, he's attacked by the infected and bitten. Jade Aldemir, a runner, rescues him and leads him to the tower, a survivor stronghold for the few locals still holding on. There, Crane meets the community fighting to endure the outbreak, including Jade's brother, Rahim, and the tower's leader, Harris Brecken. At the tower, Crane learns the lay of the land. Rice, a ruthless power broker, has been intercepting GRE airdrops and stockpiling supplies, especially antizin, the suppressant that buys time against the infection. Do note that it's not a cure. Under Rahim, Jade's impulsive younger brother, Crane picks up parkour basics to navigate the city, a skill that'll come in handy if he wants to survive the madness. Through these lessons, Crane adapts to Haran's vertical playground, learning that rooftops often mean the difference between life and death. When a new GRE airdrop is reported nearby, tower leader Brecken sends Crane to secure it. The GRE then countermands the call, instructing him to burn the drop and approach Rise to arrange a purchase, putting Crane directly in the orbit of him, the very target of his mission. Brecken urges Crane to keep in contact with Rise, but each meeting only confirms his suspicions while pushing his morals to the breaking point. Guided by Rahim's parkour training, Crane runs errands designed to prove his worth, supposedly earning him 2 full crates of antizin. Yet, when Crane confronts Rise directly, the reality becomes clear. Rise mocks his desperation, making it obvious that the tower's survival will come at the cost of Crane's dignity. He withholds the promised medicine, demanding total obedience instead, and frames his test as a measure of humanity, imposing will, creating one's rules, and abandoning the role of puppet. Crane reluctantly agrees. However, Rise reneges, handing over only a handful of vials. The GRE, on account of being a selfish organization, pauses further drops, choking off aid to the tower. With choices shrinking, Crane backs his allies and raids a Rise depot. They uncover plastic explosives, but the antizen they need still stays out of reach. The setback deepens tensions inside the tower, forcing Crane to take bigger risks as Rise's grip on the city tightens. Determined to hit back, Raheem takes the explosives to a volatile hive against Crane's advice. The nest collapses, but Raheem is bitten. Crane completes the objective but had to kill his friend. Just as hope begins to thin, the tower faces another crisis that strikes at the heart of their survival. Rise's crew raids the tower and abducts Dr. Imran Zir, the scientist closest to a cure. A rescue attempt ends with Crane's capture and a grim discovery. Elements within the GRE intend to weaponize the virus, not merely contain it. Crane escapes, but the revelation hardens his resolve to oppose both Rays and the organization that sent him on this crazy mission. Crane manages to reach Rays and cut off Rays' hand in the struggle, but Zir is killed. Rays escapes. Before dying, Zir tells Crane to deliver his research to Dr. Alan Camden, another scientist who worked with Zir. However, things just hit the roof. Word spreads that the Defense Ministry may bomb Haran to bury the outbreak for good. With options limited and time running out, Crane coordinates with local resistance and tries to push the truth outside of the quarantine. He reactivates an old radio tower to broadcast this information, but the brief relief comes at a cost. Jade is captured by Rise, who also tightens his grip on Zir's work. Jade is bitten during the chaos, and Crane desperately searches for her. He tracks her to the Haran Museum, where she's already succumbing to the virus. Rise dangles Help, a single vial of antizen. Jade uses it on Crane, giving him a fighting chance at the price of her own. When she turns, Crane ends her suffering, then delivers fresh tissue samples to Dr. Camden, who believes a cure may be possible with Zir's complete notes. With the crisis spiraling out of control, GRE forces begin maneuvering to control the outcome. They try to salvage their image, offering extraction to both Crane and Rays if they hand over Zir's data. Crane refuses. He confronts Rays atop a skyscraper and manages to defeat him. By climbing the tallest antenna, Crane broadcasts proof that survivors still remain in Haran, leading to the bombing being called off. He chooses to remain in Haran with Dr. Camden so that research on the cure can continue. Though the city remains overrun, Crane's decision ensures that hope for a cure still survives within Haran's walls. Now, if you thought that was one hell of a ride, Crane's next chapter takes things up a notch in Dying Light's DLC. In the Dying Light expansion, Crane crosses paths with a figure known as the Mother, a woman seemingly bound up with a remedy for the Haran virus. As conditions worsen and hope slowly but surely vanishes, he tries to win her trust to learn anything he can about this elusive solution. Crane partners with Attila, an associate of the Mother who helps him in his mission. As they work together, Attila briefs him with a stream of crucial background. First, he unmasks the Mother as Jasmine, once married to a colonel tied to the outbreak's shadowy origins. Bitten years earlier, she transformed into a volatile. Human by day and gifted with faint telepathic perception, yet at night she devolves into a savage, uncontrollable creature. Also, there is actually no true cure in their possession. What they have is an elixir that, like Antizin, suppresses the infection for a limited time, rather than eradicating it. The revelation shatters Crane's hopes for a permanent solution. Still, he presses on, knowing even temporary relief could buy survivors precious time. Then comes the swerve. Attila hands Crane a code whose function he can't yet explain. Almost simultaneously, Rise's men push into the countryside and assault the Mother's base. When Crane arrives, the encampment is a massacre. Everyone dead, except the Mother. She presents him with a difficult choice, branching the tale into two possible endings. One path, likely non-canon relative to Dying Light the Beast, follows the Mother's information that Attila's code arms a nuclear warhead. Detonating it would obliterate both the survivors nearby and the virus. Crane enters the sequence, and the story ends in an instant. destruction all around. Refuser and events take a different turn. Crane defeats the mother in a direct confrontation, drinks the elixir, seizes the remaining, and sets out to deliver it to Haran's survivors. Along the way, he suffers blackouts and finally understands the awful truth. He has become what he has hunted, a volatile himself. Like the mother, he's clear-minded in daylight but vulnerable to the pull of nightfall, leaving his ultimate fate deliberately ambiguous, something we hope the Beast will shed more light on. The stage is now set for Dying Light 2, which brings a new protagonist to the spotlight in an adventure that sets up more than a few potential story beats for the Beast. The second game opens on a bleak note. Crane's efforts ultimately failed. Haran's population was wiped out by the virus, more or less, but the GRE did produce a vaccine that stopped it from spreading further. The agency, however, did not abandon its bioweapons ambitions, and a mutated strain, the Tachytransmiss of Haran virus, THV, escaped a lab. The leak spread rapidly, birthing a new global pandemic that pushed humanity to the edge of collapse. Antizin no longer worked against the new strain, and the ensuing collapse became known as the Fall, which took place in 2021. Civilizations crumbled in the aftermath, leaving only scattered cities and survivors clinging to what order they could. Years pass as the THV reshapes the world, leaving nations fractured and cities in ruins. Jump to 2036 and the European city of Villador hit the worst thanks to GRE quarantine measures. Here, we meet Aiden Caldwell, a young man who's searching for his sister Mia, from who he was separated as children due to one of Dr. Vincent Waltz's GRE experiments into looking for a cure for THV. En route to his contact Dylan, who will give him information on Mia, Aiden is bitten by a volatile, putting him on the clock. He rescues Dylan from the Renegades, receives a GRE access key, which is an encrypted master credential that unlocks pre-collapse GRE facilities and protocols, including X13, something that we're going to talk about later, and a warning about Dr. Waltz, and is told to head for the fisheye to find a woman named Lawan. Dylan is then killed by Waltz, who has come for the key and begins hunting Aiden. From that moment on, Aiden becomes both a target and a key player in the struggle for Villador's future. That chase pulls Aiden into the orbit of several key figures, Hakon, a former Night Runner, and Lawan herself, who twice helped Aiden before revealing her identity and her own score to settle with Waltz because she had undergone experimentation due to him. Through them, Aiden becomes entangled in Villador's struggle for power, where every alliance carries a cost. Waltz eventually corners Aiden, seizes the GRE key, and uses it to bring Villador's dormant power grid online. With Lawan's help, Aiden gets the key back and teams up with the residents of Central Loop to reactivate the region's radio tower, which points him to Dr. Veronica Ryan. She leads him to the GRE Observatory, but the search for Mia comes up empty. Instead, Aiden uncovers more of Waltz's experiments, deepening the mystery around his own past. Aiden does learn that using the key triggered a failsafe. Villador is now slated for bombardment. Waltz confronts him again, Aiden's infection surges, and Veronica is killed during the struggle. The observatory is leveled in a sudden missile barrage, leaving chaos in its wake as Waltz slips away with the key yet again. Aiden crosses paths with Colonel Williams, the Renegade's commander, who tells him that he doesn't want to see Villador getting destroyed by Waltz's missiles, and points him towards the X13 facility. Inside, the truth unravels. Mia is not his sister, but Waltz's daughter, sustained by experiments while plagued by the THV. X13 systems are the one thing sustaining her, and aborting the missile strike will also shut down the lab. Aiden defeats Waltz, the GRE key is destroyed, and Lawan volunteers to detonate charges to destroy the missiles. So what did Waltz really want? In simple terms, Waltz's objective was to reach X13 and reactivate the GRE treatment protocols in a last-ditch attempt to cure his daughter, Mia. He hunts Aiden for the GRE access key, and if needed, Aiden's unique physiology, showing no concern for collateral damage. One ending has Aiden carry Mia out of X13. She soon dies after. If Hakon is alive and allied, he saves Lawan from the blast, and she can leave Villador with Aiden. In the other ending, pulling Lawan out lets the missiles hit Villador, killing many. Aiden departs the city, and if Hakon survived and stayed an ally, he's the one who travels with him. But how are these events tied to Dying Light the Beast? Well, we're sure glad you asked. The fact that the upcoming title was originally meant to be a DLC chapter for Dying Light 2 has us wondering about potential connections between Waltz and the Baron, who features as the antagonist of the new game. We know that the Baron has been experimenting on Crane for 13 years, and that Crane is out for revenge. Now that sounds very similar to Lawan's own trajectory, and that of Aiden. Could Waltz and the Baron have been working together, attempting to develop a cure by experimenting on the infected and innocent people? Could Crane have made his way to Villedor or its vicinity at some point after his unfortunate transformation into a volatile? Are the Casterwoods anywhere in the vicinity of Villedor? Another angle to ponder is the possibility of Aiden or Lawan making an appearance at some point in the Beast story. Could Aiden and his companion have a role to play in Crane's revenge? Perhaps they too are looking to put a stop to the twisted experiments of the Baron, finding them too close to what Waltz was doing back in Villedor. Such a crossover could tie both games more tightly together, bridging Haran and Villedor into one continuous struggle. It would also give fans a chance to see how these survivors have grown, scarred yet unbroken in the years since their own battles. If the Baron's reach extended that far, it would explain the overlap in methods and goals between the factions. It might also hint that Crane's path and Villedor's fate were never as separate as they first appeared. More importantly, how much of Aiden is left? Remembering he was exposed to THV when he was young and also got bit earlier during the events of Dying Light 2. His struggles to maintain his humanity could be the perfect reflection of Crane's own troubles. Is there a chance that we might see two beasts rampaging through hordes of the infected on their way to their revenge? If Aiden's grip slips the way Crane's did, their paths could converge in something far more dangerous than a reunion. Whether they stand together or collide, the fallout would reshape any fight against the infected. That's certainly going to be a sight to see. We're also quite curious about the Baron himself. Why did he do what he did? Did he have someone he was trying to save, just like Waltz did? Could that person be a part of the narrative in The Beast? Well, thankfully, we're not going to have to wait too long to find out. We're going to be diving right into Dying Light the Beast as soon as we can, and we hope to find some answers alongside you, and perhaps an expansive cast that brings both new faces and familiar ones into the fold. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.